And this man says, "Hey, do you want to go to Disneyland?" I said, "Yeah, I want to," because this is what you see on TV. And then all of a sudden, he picks me up, puts me in the community dryer, and closes the dryer and tries to kill me.
I'm blessed by everyone I have on the show, and today's guest is no exception. Garrain Jones is a globally celebrated transformational leader, author, and speaker renowned for his ability to awaken the untapped greatness within individuals. Born in Houston, Texas in 1979, Garrain faced numerous adversities in life, including a near-death experience at the age of 10 and the loss of his father at age 12. His best-selling book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, has inspired countless readers to embrace transformation and personal growth. Garrain's journey from adversity to empowerment has made him a sought-after speaker and coach, guiding thousands to break free from limitations and embrace their authentic selves. His work emphasizes love, leadership, and transformation, making him one of America's top 25 personal development coaches. Well, that's pretty impressive to be in the top 25 personal development coaches. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. I don't know how they measured that, but I know there's a Netflix special coming out that has me on it, and they did not make a wrong decision.
That's great. I love that. So you have an incredible background that most people could have never imagined. Take us back to those early days.
I would, there was something even before the age of 10. You remember things, you either stuff down things that deeply impacted you in a negative way, or you remember it. I remember being 4 years old, 45 now, so 41 years ago. I remember being 4 years old, being in our apartment complex in Houston, and there was a grown man. I would say he's probably maybe 19 years old. So yeah, so he, I remember I wanted, you get told about Disneyland. You're like, oh my goodness, the land of make believe. You got to make believe, and you'll be in Disneyland. And I remember being taught about like make believe. And this man says, "Hey, do you want to go to Disneyland?" I said, "Yeah, I want to," because this is what you see on TV. And then all of a sudden, he picks me up, puts me in the community dryer, and closes the dryer and tries to kill me. And I remember when he picked me up saying, "This doesn't make sense, but you've got to make believe." Closes the dryer and leaves me there to die. And I'm tumbling. I mean, but you just imagine a dryer, an actual dryer, and a 4 year old child puts me in there, and a lady, she saved my life. She didn't have any like a bra on or anything, but she opened and she saw it happen, opened it up, saved my life. So that birth, I don't trust older people. And at the time, his skin color was like a white skin color. I don't trust.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what white and black was at that time because I was 4 years old. But like anybody that had that skin color, I didn't trust because that skin color represent you're trying to kill me. I didn't trust men because it was a man, and I didn't trust older people because an older man with white skin tried to kill me, and that was the origin of a lack of trust and not having faith or using my imagination, because using my imagination had to do with almost dying. That's
That one,
that one
holy smokes.
because your body keeps the score. So everything that has impacted you when you were a child, and most people don't know this because they don't teach somatics or levels of trauma in school. And we wonder why you look around every day and there's so much suffering. Every adult is a deteriorated child. And if at any moment you had abandonment issues with your mom or your dad or anything, that is still inside of you. And so anytime somebody abandons you or you manifest someone abandoning you, the part of you that's manifesting that is the child that was so hurt, but you never dealt with that trauma. So you keep repeating the behavior. So that one instant lived with me until I was 37 years old. And I manifested not trusting white skin, older men from that one thing. So this is why I see why even the black and whites racial divide that happens, because all it takes is one instant to be traumatized.
It's very interesting to me when you're young. or even if something bad happens to you, you start filtering. You put things into a bucket or put it into a category. For example, if you're driving a car and all of a sudden a red pickup truck hits you, you're going to be afraid of red pickup trucks for a long time,
100%.
right? And so you're kind of, your brain filters that out. It doesn't matter whether you're 4 or 40, you start looking for danger. And that's what we're all looking for, right? And so you have this trauma,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you couldn't process it, but you
No.
felt it.
No. So ultimately, what you're speaking to about how it, because it doesn't just happen in a way of trauma or picking up that pattern, it also happens a good way of something really good that impacts you. You also manifest that too. But the part of you that's manifesting that, it's called Tony Robbins talks about it all the time. It's called the reticular activating system.
Yep.
So if you're not thinking about a white car, thinking about a white car. Even me saying a white car, all of a sudden somebody's listening, they're like, white car. But the moment you say, you know what, I'm going to get a Toyota Corolla, but you don't typically see a white Toyota Corolla. The moment you put in your mind, it is imprinted on your subconscious mind. Next thing you know, you start seeing it on every single block because they're all there. But when it's impacted, the imprint hits the brain and it creates this unconscious reticular, it unconsciously imprints on the reticular activating system. So therefore, the subconscious mind will manifest in physical form the same outcome over and over. And that's why a lot of times we date a different variation of one of our parents over and over and over, especially if you didn't heal from that part. You will attract a person that literally matches the level of healing. There was like, oh my God, I can't get away from this guy. Why do I keep dating the same kind of guy? Because you never dealt with the healing of your dad or your mom.
Mm.
So all of that
Oh,
is an actual thing. I teach this for a living. So
right.
it was these conversations that I worked through and spent so much money learning how to basically reparent myself and get back to little Garrain so that I can live the life that I'm actually meant to live, not one where I'm manifesting something that is outside of my nature.
Yeah. Let's go back to little Garen for just a few more minutes. So 4 years old, that's pretty traumatic. And then you had a couple other things happen. Your dad died at 12, is that right?
Yeah, so when I was in, I think I was 7, we'll go to 7, and then my dad's dead. And when I was 7, I remember playing baseball in the cul-de-sac at Derek Duncan's house. And I'd heard in the neighborhood there was these guys that were like killing other kids by drowning them in the bayou. And see, in that time, there wasn't all this social media. There wasn't social media when I was 7. So things, you don't really have people posting about things and, oh, I saw this person. And so there's a lot of stuff when I tell the story, people are like, oh, how did these people not get caught? One, you got to realize it depends on what neighborhood you live in. I didn't live in the absolute best neighborhood. So sometimes people just don't care in specific neighborhoods that you're and living in. But if I was living in an upper class neighborhood, oh, that they would have found that I didn't live in an upper class neighborhood. So you hear about these people, don't know who it is, that were killing dogs and drowning animals and kids. You never think nothing like that's going to happen to you. So
Right.
I'm playing baseball, and all of a sudden, some guys that I knew, because they were my cousin's friends. So automatically, if you're my cousin's friends, you're safe. They're like, hey, there's some trout in the bayou. First off, ain't no trout in the dirty ass bayou. I didn't know that. I'm 7, but I loved fishing. And so I was leaving the game, and I remember Derek said, don't go. Derek, they tried to drown Derek, and I didn't know the reason why he was telling me don't go because those were the same guys that tried to drown Derek. He was like, Garrain, don't go. I took off and I ran because I wanted to catch trout. I get to the bayou. There's 3 tunnels that sucks you in because of the current over to the other side of the street. That's how they were drowning them. And I was like, where's the trout? They were like, you got to look closer. I was like, I don't see it. And it was four people. I remember it was 2 Hispanic dudes, 2 black dudes, and they were all about 18, 19. something about this 18, 19. And they were older. And they said, look close. And I was like, I don't see any trout. They said, look closer. And that voice, something inside said, these are the people that have been killing the kids. And before I could finish that thought, they threw me into the bayou. I couldn't swim at that time. I turned upside down in the current and I'm getting ready and I'm like, ah, 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 and I'm getting ready to be sucked into the tunnel. If I go into the tunnel, I'm dead. All of a sudden, I just let my hands go. I'm already dead. You can't see underwater. While I'm being sucked in through the tunnel, I've already passed the lip of the tunnel. There was a hand that goes boom and pulls me up just enough for me to get to the side. And I'm pulling while the current is sucking me this way. I'm pulling, I finally get up. And I looked up and I saw nobody.
Wow. Who do you attribute that to?
Back then, I didn't know what to call it. But I will tell you, the first time I ever saw the photo of Jesus pulling someone out of the water, it made me feel the same way that I felt when I looked up and saw no one. And I was like, God, thank you for saving my life. So there's several things that happen during that time. Now, it's no longer older white men that I don't trust. It's older black men that I don't trust and older Hispanics that I don't trust, because the moment I trusted again, someone tried to kill me. So now I just bunch everybody older with not trusting they're going to try to kill me. So now it's not just white, it's black and it's Hispanic. Now it's not just those three, it's anyone older. That's one instance. That's when I was 7.
How did that affect your day-to-day life? I mean, what were you going through? What were the stories that you were saying to yourself in your mind? Do you remember those?
I remember feeling betrayed because I wanted the older people in my life to do something about it. I wanted somebody, I wanted the police to do something about it. I wanted my mom to do something about it. And it's almost like they only did enough.
Mm.
But I wanted somebody to like have my back like all the way through. And like really it's like, I'm not going to stop until I find who did this. And it never happened. It
You never
literally,
found out
it
who did
never
it?
happened. It never happened. So
Did
now,
those people ever go to jail for killing other people?
never happened. Nothing ever came from what happened to me.
That's a terrible place to be, especially as a 4-year-old, as a 7-year-old. And I'm fascinated by how that would have affected you for the rest of your life. I
It was
mean,
all trust, and it was, I lacked faith in the older generation. I lacked faith. I didn't trust them. Why? I'm not going to make a decision because every time I make a decision that's based off of trust, I wind up almost getting killed. And there's a lot of people that they may not have the same story, but they have things that impact them that they don't even realize is being it's like being controlled by a 5 or 6 year old that just has your adult on a string, and you don't even realize why you got so triggered when your wife said this one thing, but your wife represents your mom who said the one thing that you haven't dealt with in your nervous system, so it's activating the trauma that comes up in your adult life. Those are only 2 instances. We as little kids have instance after instance, and I'm not even talking about school, the government, things that we're told money doesn't grow on trees, don't go, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're gonna die if you go in the middle of the street. Like, so it's almost like we're brainwashed by fear. So if you can be controlled by, if you can be domesticated in fear, however you are domesticated is how you can be controlled, which is why the news programs shows fear and all of a sudden people react. If you're domesticated in fear, you can be controlled by fear.
I think I like to use analogies, and the one that I think of is, imagine driving a car and they keep putting a little weight on the left side of your steering wheel. So you keep having to adjust to the right, and they keep putting more and more weight that, if you don't turn to the right, you'll go to the left, you go into oncoming traffic. And so we have these weights that are holding us down and we have to try and counteract them, but nobody ever looks and says, hey, there's a bunch of weight taking you this way. You need to clear those off your plate, I guess, and so that you can drive straight without all this baggage. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it totally makes sense. But now we're understanding A few years ago, I spoke on this political panel, which I was an absolute no when I first got approached. They were like, we're looking for diversity, and this is a political panel. Well, some of I mean, very powerful people, and you'll be somebody we got to look for. We're looking for somebody of color. And I was like, first, I don't want a sympathy vote. I was like, you give me because I'm the person for the job. Don't do it because I'm black. That doesn't make me feel good. I'm really good at what I do. And so we cleared that. I get on the stage. Every question that gets asked to everybody, one of the panel members, I realized even in politics, underneath is a broken child who doesn't feel seen or heard or feel like they matter. And most people build a life based off of trying to prove daddy right, trying to prove mom wrong and whatever, or I don't never want to be like my dad or mom, so I'm going to do this life. And so there's something that spawns from childhood. And so that's why a lot of times people can have the appearance of a great life, but when the truth shows up and they look in the mirror and nobody is around, all of a sudden there's this insecurity, there's this depression, and they drink and they do drugs and they do the porn and they scroll. And all of this is the avoiding of the true self. What I learned being on that political stage, and I was like, wow, I know how to literally heal the entire country. It's the little kid inside of the adult. They're not happy. And it manifests its way in, oh, my president didn't get picked. We didn't win. And it's like, wait, hold on. Why didn't you fight this hard for your family? Why haven't you fought this hard for the book that you've been saying you wanted to write for the last 2 years? How come you're not telling you, I'm going to move the country if I don't do what I said I was going to do? So now
Wow.
you're researching everybody outside of you, but you're not researching yourself. You got a flag outside that says Trump 2024 or Biden or Harris 2024, but you don't have a flag outside that says my family 2024 or us 2024 or me 2024. So I'm realizing as a whole, we give more power to everyone and everything outside of us. But when it comes time to vote for ourselves, now I can see why we are the way we are as a collective, because we don't know how to be with ourselves, because a lot of things happen in childhood and the adults are deteriorated children. So being on the political stage, I'm like, everybody's child, not everybody, but a lot of people's child is wounded. They don't even have the slightest clue, because then you had to go through the school system that doesn't teach you about your actual child self. They teach you how to be basic and average.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to little Darren just for a few more minutes because I think it leads to everything that you're talking about.
Yes.
You figured out a way to be overcome all of this, and I think we've only unpacked a small portion of it. So, t your dad dies, you end up going to prison or jail at one point. Tell us a little bit more about that because, again, I think it all adds to the story.
Yeah.
It deepens
So
your credibility as to what you do and how you help people.
So yeah, my parents separated when I was 4. Because I was always getting kicked out of school, I never really got indoctrinated by the direction of how school went. Like it never made sense to me. Why? The fluorescent lights made me feel different than the lights at home at school. And those fluorescent lights made me feel the same way that I felt at the hospital. Matter of fact, they were the same lights. And those same lights were the same lights that I would see on TV in a prison. So it was like it was all the same. And it never made sense to me, even when I was in elementary, why there were no windows for me to connect with nature. And they never took us outside. We were just in this thing, learning things that didn't make sense that I still don't apply to today. So I always felt disconnected to something that didn't feel like there was belonging or a togetherness. I couldn't explain it. So I naturally gravitated towards people that would take me in and take me under their wing because I didn't get it from home. My mom was always working and my dad wasn't there. And I didn't have the awareness that I had now, which was I just want somebody to see me. I want to feel seen. I want somebody to ask me, hey, what do I want? Not tell me everything I should do. And this is what happens at school. So I'd get kicked out of class, get kicked out of school, come home, and I'd sing. My mom would tell me to shut up because she had a low tolerance for loud singing. And I'm like, man, I'm just like, I don't even know where to be myself. Don't grow your hair because your hair will be nappy. You can't wear those mismatched clothes. And I remember saying at home, Mom, at little, ask me if I love it. I yelled
Oh,
at her, not knowing that was me fighting for my own freedom. I had no idea. So, me fighting for my freedom was called a problem child at school, disruption, disruptive behavior. Well, the reason why I had disruptive behavior because my natural expression kept getting shut down. I wish somebody would say, this child keeps singing.
let him sing.
Let's probably put him in a place where you can be in an environment of singing. So when you don't honor your natural expression will come out in an unhealthy way. So that's when I was breaking into cars, breaking into homes at a young age. And I hung out with people who were doing that. But in that environment, it's not like I wanted to steal. Those were the only people that took me in and they would congratulate me. They're like, wow, you're so brave. Wow, you're confident. So naturally, like a flower grows towards the energy, that's the first place in a troubled environment where I got someone taking me in, building me up, saying, wow, keep going, you're doing amazing. It's not that I wanted to do. That's the only place where the flower got the energy. So it
Mm.
leaned towards that. So naturally, just like ABCs turns into words, sentences, paragraphs, the origin of stealing ABCs was getting togetherness and belonging energy. I floored it. So the ABCs turns into words, sentences, paragraphs version of stealing was having me now break into homes and having a community of people that brought me in. And I just kept going. I never stopped because that was the only place where people didn't call me weird.
Wow. I think of it sometimes as ladders. On one wall, you have kind of good morals, values, ethics, and goals. And on the other wall, you have bad morals, ethics, and goals. And it sounds like people were encouraging you to climb the wrong ladder, but they were giving you attention and feedback and, hey, you're doing great, but you're climbing the wrong wall. You're climbing the wrong ladder. Is
Yeah,
that
and then there
right?
were no morals. Like I didn't grow, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a disciplined family. I just had just like, don't do this, don't do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. We can't afford it. And my mom did the best she could. Like she had to, like after my father was murdered when I was 12 years old, she literally, but they separated. So me and my brother went with my mom and she had to play the role of the man and the woman at the same time while raising two badass kids and trying to put food on the table and keeping the lights on. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I had no idea until later on in life what a woman has to go through and grow through just to protect and provide for her family. That's why it's not always good that a man just works and leaves the wife at home because most of the stuff the mom will never talk about, but a lot of them are actually suffering because they don't get the recognition that they should get. And so when it says a woman should get half or something like that, and people are like, nope, she don't bring home all the money, but she cooks and cleans and all these other things. No, you have no idea because no man could actually fill a woman's shoes in a role of what a woman plays, a mother plays. I didn't learn that till later on. So I spent the whole of my life downplaying my mom. I was like, you didn't love me. You didn't have food at the table. So this is all the stuff we don't know. We don't even know this. And I didn't find this out until my 30s until I started doing this work. And I'm like, Mom, I'm so sorry. But during that time, everything she said was harping down my throat. And I didn't know the reason why she was frustrated is because we never showed appreciation for her doing her best and everything she was doing behind the scenes just to keep the lights on.
That's right. Shout out to all the moms out there. Thank you for the great work you did. Thank you to my mom. Thank you to your mom. They really, they don't get paid what they're worth. So, yes. So you were in a bad place there. And at some point, you turned it around. What was the catalyst? What was the pivotal moment where things started going a different direction?
So, like I spoke to you a second ago when we were just like me ending up in prison was just an iteration of the prison that I was already in while I was free, going in and out of jail, in and out of juvenile, in and out of in school suspension, in and out of 3 day suspension, 2 week suspension, all those different things. Prison was just the library version of when I was stealing. So that train just kept going. When I was in prison, serving a 12-year sentence, I got out in 2.5 years, but it was what happened to me in prison when I knew that there was a different aspect of life, which sent me on a 15-year quest that led me to here. When I was in prison serving a 12-year sentence for smuggling 6.2 kilos of heroin from one country to the next, while being the most anti-drug person you will ever meet, to this day, never had a sip of alcohol, but I was greed. It was my greed for money. And I was like, I wasn't making it here while I was doing all this modeling. I had these great jobs, but it took a long time for money to get there. So my original Bitcoin was like, oh, I can do this job and make money right away. Oh, that's really cool. Drive a car over a border and then make 4,000 pounds, which 1 pound was 2.3 US dollars back in 2000. That was like the dominant currency. And so when I was in prison serving this 12-year sentence, I remember watching Shawshank Redemption, which is a movie that's based out of prison. And Tim Robbins, the main actor, and I remember them saying to him something about prison. He's like, they can take anything they want away from me, but they can't take away my mind. And it was in that moment right there in prison where I became a free man. And I remember saying, I know why I'm in prison, because I gave my mind away. I gave my power away to everything and everyone outside of me. And I remember I used to say all the time, I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body, far away from where I'm supposed to be in life. Next thing, I'm far away from where I'm supposed to be. Europe, in France, inside of a prison. I said, I know. It's not the reason why I was here. The reason why I was here, there's something about the way that I was thinking that put me in prison. So therefore, I started reading all these books, all these mindset books and everything while I was in prison. I said, what can I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there? I stopped using my dominant hand. I started using my non-dominant hand, which I didn't even know was going to exercise a different part of my brain. Then all of a sudden I started being so creative. And I was like, I'm a free man. What will a free person do? And a voice inside said, everything you used to love to do as a child. And I was like, what did I used to love to do that made me happy? I used to love to draw and paint. I used to love to run. I used to love to motivate people. I used to love to sing. And I stopped singing because everybody told me to shut up. And I stopped running because I'm older and it's harder than it was when I was younger. And I stopped motivating people. And I stopped drawing because I just had to figure life out. And then the voice inside, Garrain, he was like, but that is how you obtain freedom. Things that made you the most happy, that brought you the most joy, is your freedom. And I was like, oh, so while I was in prison, in losing my freedom, I discovered my freedom. And I started drawing and painting again. I started singing, and an inmate goes, every time you sing, it makes me feel free. But something was happening to me. So it was almost like something that brought me so much joy that I was just sharing with people made me feel way different. I start running. I saw fights, drug deals, people stabbing each other. Next thing you know, I'm running outside. Nobody's running. 30 days, 60 something inmates were running with me. Less fights, less drug deals. less people stabbing each other. So it's something about the energy that is overflowing inside of what brought me the most joy as a child, that was overflowing into this prison. And when I felt free, not when I fought. You cannot fight for something you can only give to yourself. Outside freedom does not determine freedom. That's why you have all these people free in America who are prisoners into their mentality. You cannot be free as a representation of outside freedom. It's the power to possess your own mind. So it took me from losing my freedom to discover my actual freedom. And then when I gave myself my childlike joy, they magically called me in the office. 2.5 years in my prison sentence of, they tested the drugs three times, 6.2 kilos of heroin. Called me into the office. Jones, we retested the drugs. 90% was fake. And for the amount that was real, you've already done the time. You're free to go home.
It's like that hand grabbing you from the culvert.
So what that taught me was that there's something else beyond just this meat suit, or that has to do with the way that I'm thinking, the way that I'm speaking about myself, how I feel on the inside, my energy, and the actions that's directly connected to what naturally brought me the most joy as a child. There's something about that combination that creates a felt sense internally that can rewrite any narrative that any human can put on you. So I invested so much money, traveled all over the world to learn about the power of energy, frequency, and vibration. And then I was like, oh my goodness. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So all of my work underneath contains energy, frequency, and vibration that directly correlates to the joy of the child inside of you that can unlock any constraint that the adult puts on the self.
This is amazing. There's so much to unpack here. I want to back up just a second, because what you shared, I think, could be pivotal for a lot of our listeners. Because if you're in a bad place, a dark place, whatever you want to call it, you're going through something. You did 3 things, it sounded like: books, and I want to ask you what books in a second. The questions, you asked an empowering question: what can I do? And that puts the power from out here back into your brain. And I think that if anybody is in a place like that and they say, what can I do? You start taking responsibility for your own life. And then the other thing is, I think all of us have that sequestered side hustle, that little thing that makes us come alive. And many of us have been busy creating a job instead of a life. And so, again, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's start with a basic question. What were some of the books that you read that got you started on this journey?
I read a lot of like Agatha Christie books because it just had me thinking about like these different mysteries, and it had me like, oh, what's going to happen next? And so it just put me back into imagination. So like adults, they're like, oh, my life, I got to wake up this time. Oh, I can't stand the traffic. They stop using their imagination. So it put me into, oh, what's going to happen next? Let me guess. So it put me back into the energy of wonderment. And then I started learning a new language. So I learned to speak fluent French. C'est très facile pour moi. And so I learned how to unlearn English and learn a new language. And so that put me in the adaptive mind. Adults, I mean, we're habitual creatures by nature. Just kind of do the same thing. You brush your teeth the same way, sleep the same way, eat the food the same way. You do the same thing over and over. But by me learning a new language, it opened up the part of my brain that starts to adapt. I stopped using my dominant hand and started using my non-dominant hand, which I didn't realize was exercising a different part of my brain, which we're only using a small portion of our brain. What if you could use 1% instead of 0.1%? Most people only use one hand. So by me doing that, that also exercised adaptation. Then I was reading a book. I read the Bible cover to cover. I read the Quran cover to cover, which most people don't do that. And I was like, dang, these are ultimately saying the same thing. So I was exercising in a spiritual aspect of myself, not knowing. I just was like, what can I do in here that I wouldn't normally do out there? Then there was a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. The power of positive thinking, not the weakness of positive thinking. And I just kept reading that book over and over. And what happens when you listen to a song over and you can't get it out of your head? Matter of fact, even if you try not to memorize a song. So what that tells me is there's another mind at play called your subconscious mind. And whatever you keep feeding it is what's going to keep coming out consciously. So I kept reading the book, Power of Positive Thinking, over and over, which means I was thinking positive. But I was thinking positive from a more expanded mind who had the ability to adapt into his environment, who then started to create again, but from childlike joy. So that combination, those combinations is what I've built 3 7-figure businesses from, but in an effortless way because it's the energy. I focus on the energy, I hire from the energy, I fire from the energy, and I create from the energy. And it tends to do the same thing every single time.
That's amazing. It goes back to your 4-year-old kind of getting shoved in that dryer. And you said you stopped imagining. And at 4 years old, wanting to go to Disneyland, you turned off your imagination. I like to say that our minds are the greatest 3D printer on the planet, and most people have never found the on switch.
Greatest. And then what's even crazier about what you said is everything that's coming into your life, your wife, your kids, your life, your job, all created by you. Whether you're conscious or unconscious of it. And that's the thing, because you can't see the picture while you're in the frame. So this is why I always tell people to have someone in your life that can pull out of you what you can't pull out of yourself. That will save you hundreds and thousands of dollars because easily they can help you compress time frames.
Absolutely. You can use money to get back some of the time that a really good coach helps you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. You have an interesting story about imagination and your wife.
Ah, I love that woman. Wow. I love that woman.
For
Well,
those of you listening online and can't see the great big smile he has right now, it's huge. His whole body relaxed, and it was just beautiful to see him genuinely loving his wife. So tell us how you met her and the story behind that.
I got to give you the framework because I think in terms of frames so that people can learn from the stories that I tell. There's a series of things that I did. I didn't have a relationship with my first daughter that I do have now. She's 15 years old. And I remember wanting the relationship with my daughter so bad. Mind you, I have a background of being the kind of person that cheated on every girlfriend that he ever had, never saw himself married, was never going to have kids again. And so I'm that person that you want to keep away from your wife or your girlfriends from the past because I was a broken boy with a bottomless hole in his heart trying to be a man with no real role models of what that looked like. So that's where I was. But I wanted a relationship with my daughter so bad, I just didn't know how. So I was like, man, maybe it's no matter what I do, she's not going to give me a chance. So what is it about me? What is it about me that my daughter doesn't trust? And all of a sudden, that's what led me to masters in spiritual psychology and studying to be a samurai for 2 years and doing 10 days silent retreats and 5 days in the dark and mastery and transformation training and going all the way through landmark, going all the way through insight 1, 2, and 3 and communications course 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like I've really turned it to myself. I'm like, there's got to be something about me because nothing that I'm showing my daughter cares about. So what is it about me that my daughter doesn't trust? And that's what started the inner work in 2015. And I just kept going to healing retreat. And I actually create these healing retreats now. And because I know that people need that kind of help, that type of deep help. And I went to all these retreats, and every single one I went to led me into deeper understanding of like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that I had issues with women because I still had issues with my mom. My mom is the first woman, and so that's a pattern that kept following me. I didn't know I had issues with men, the way my dad treated my mom, the way my brother treated women. I hate man. If I hate man, then I hate myself. I didn't know that until I started doing all of this deep work. So when I started healing from that, it was one of the emotional intelligence courses that I went through. And I was serving on the door, welcoming all the new incoming people. I met my future wife that I didn't know was going to be my future wife, Blair, there. But the funny thing is 3 years prior, I wrote this list. And it was a list of, if I ever have somebody that's going to be my soulmate, this is the perfect person. I don't care about no color or just none of that matters to me. I was like, love is hard to find. What I care about is like, do you love God? If something were to ever happen to me, do you know how to make your own money? Masculine and easily slip into the feminine. Do you like fashion? Do you like animals? Do you like traveling? Do you love personal growth? So I wrote a list of 62 attributes. It's the craziest thing in the world. The second list was how I wanted to be treated. I wanted somebody to like acknowledge me without me having to say something and just treat me kind, but I'd also do the same. And then the third list was the top 5 places that I'd never been to before where I would meet this person. Circle and star the one that has the most attributes in it. And that one was a personal development seminar. That was 3 years prior. In those 3 years, my daughter came into my life. And then all of a sudden, when I was at a silent retreat, there was a man that said to me, "You're a good-looking guy, go and get a date with your daughter." And I never thought to pursue my daughter like I would pursue a woman on a date. And I was like, oh, I represent the man that she will date. But I've never pursued her. I've never displayed integrity. I've never displayed safety. And I was like, oh my God, I can do that. I know I can do that. So I started pursue my daughter like I would pursue a woman. And when she said no, I'd still show up. When she said no, I'd still call. Don't ever call me again. I'd still call. And I said, hey, this Friday, I want you to get magazine ready. I'm going to take you on a date to your favorite restaurant. Don't ask any questions. Her mom calls me and says, what did you do to my daughter? I said, why? She said, she's changed into 20 different outfits and she's been giddy the whole time. All of a sudden, within a month, my daughter goes, Daddy, you're different. So from there, my daughter starts acting in a way, I was like, hey, I'd want a woman who does that. Oh, I'd want a woman that was like that, because my daughter's the first woman I've ever actually let all the way in. Mm-hmm. When I let a woman all the way in, most people don't let their moms all the way in. When I let a woman all the way in, that's when I met Blair. Blair and my daughter have a similar personality, and that's when I know it was from God. I was like, oh, and I met her at a personal development seminar while I was serving. So in the doorway of service is where I met my wife.
That's amazing.
We now have 2 kids. I'm a devoted husband, committed husband, and now all these women say, you represent the divine masculine. I've never felt safe in the presence of another man who doesn't want anything. And I was like, wow, what a transformation.
Absolutely. There's a great book called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it or read it, but in that book, the 2 things that come out of it is that every man struggles with the question, am I man enough? And the question that every woman struggles with is, am I pretty enough? And so we're always going through life we're trying to be man enough. Women, we're trying to be pretty enough. And one of the things that comes out in that book is the idea that women want somebody to fight for them. They actually want to be like trapped in the tower and we slay the dragon and go rescue them. And I thought this was all BS until one day my wife and I were playing with our daughter and we were on like my old playground back home and there was a little elevated area and I said, "Oh, you're trapped in the tower. I'm going to come slay the dragon and rescue you." And you should have seen my wife's face. She just got absolutely like, "Wow, you're coming to save me." And I think that's really what you just did with your daughter was you saved her from the dragon and you said magazine ready. So you made her feel beautiful. And that was the thing that probably from, like you said, from then on really connected. So that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's now that I connect with a lot of men deeply because men, we have a certain thing. It's like they want to make a lot of money. They want to be fit.
Mhm.
That's an actual thing. Like there's a such thing as a woman's touch. There's such as the ideal man is like smart, like educated, fit, make money, have a family. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's a thing. When I became all of those things, I didn't realize how many men was like, I want to learn from you. Even men that have had this business, $950 million business. This is why I'm a coach for some of the top business minds in the country. I didn't realize they were looking at my family. I didn't realize that they wanted something like that while being successful because they didn't know that you can be successful monetarily and be successful in family. So when it kept coming, like, thank you for showing me what's possible, I'm like, fuck, thank you for showing me what's possible in business. And I was like, no, but
That's right.
what I really want is that. I was like, oh,
Yes.
this is a valuable thing. So I'm very grateful to be the kind of role model I never had. I literally had to create in my mind, I am the most powerful representation of who my daughter will marry one day.
Oh,
And the
wow.
seed I planted in that. And when it came, so a man was like, what about for if you have a son? I said, I am the most powerful representation of who I will hand the baton off to one day. And then I was like, so anytime I'm out of alignment with my health, with integrity and everything, am I the most powerful representation of who my daughter will, because your daughter will marry a man that is just like you.
That is so deep and so good. This is a message to all the men out there. If you are addicted to pornography, if you are doing things that you would not want your wife or daughter to know about, you need to stop that immediately because that kind of stuff, it's not going to help you be the role model that you really should be. So,
Here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. If you think you're doing something in hiding while your child shares the DNA coding, epigenetic, just like looks, transfers. There are
yep,
things that I never saw my dad do that passed right into me because his family was like, your dad used to be just like that when he was a little kid.
mm,
The insecurity transfers. So when you work on yourself, you actually give your children a better opportunity to not have to deal with your traumas because your traumas ultimately will become theirs. So that's why you deal with your health. You deal with all these things so you can give your children a launching pad and not make it harder for them because you didn't take care of your own stuff.
exactly.
I coach it for a living. I watch
Right.
mom or dad, the moment they shift, all of a sudden they have a 13-year-old kid. They're like, their behavior shifts. Why? Because y'all share the same nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got just a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you, what are you not doing in your life that maybe you want to be doing more of? Is there something that your inner
Pursuing,
child wants to?
pursuing. No, it is knowing. I don't know how much my wife will allow me to say, but everyone knows that right after you have a baby, you do not have the most wild libido. It's knowing that my wife, while she's still in process of coming back into her body, doesn't have the most wild libido, is pursuing her even more. And as I'm saying this, I know where I get to show up even more because now I said it. Now it's in my conscious awareness. I'm like, all right, I don't wait for her libido to come back fully. It's letting her know I'm still attracted to you and I'm showing up double because every woman loves being pursued.
Make her feel beautiful and fight for her, and you'll have a happy marriage.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. You mentioned something before we got on the call about what you wanted to be doing in the future. I don't know if you want to bring that up or whether you don't want to talk about that.
Talking about the music,
Yeah.
my intention for the call, I actually realized the aspect of music because I mean, it's not in the future. I'm actually doing it now.
You're doing this right now. Okay.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to know which direction to go in next as far as what I'm creating. And when I started talking about the value of my mom and mothers, something in my spirit was like, mothers have never really been honored in a way that really puts the world put the world on display of the power of a mom. I'm gonna write,
Yes.
I'm gonna do a song about that.
That's amazing. You should. I can't wait to hear it.
And the title of it is called because every mom gets called a different name. So it's like mom, mama, or mother. And so the title of it is Mom, Mama, Mother. And so it's like, and it's going to address all the way in which how you like to be called. But the stories that I'm going to talk about are stories of triumph, not this, oh, you loved me and this like that. That's the typical. I personally know stories like how the fuck did she do all of that when the father wasn't there?
Yes.
And she will never complain about it publicly. She just keeps showing up and showing up. So on behalf of the way that you've never been seen, let me shine this spotlight and paint this dream that you are fully seen. Mama is like mom, mama, mother. It's like, wow. What I'm gonna do is it's like it is a on behalf of all humanity, the way I'm gonna speak about moms is the way that people speak about Mother Nature. And
Oh,
so
wow.
it's gonna be that and make mamas feel so seen all over the world.
Oh, you're gonna have moms selling out your concerts. I can't wait to see that. That's gonna be incredible.
That's the next creation I'm gonna do.
There it is. There's your 3D printer printing that image of moms crying, or just, I don't know what the emotion that you want them to have is, appreciation, whatever it is, but that's really great. I think that'll help humanity a lot.
Yeah.
If you have time, I'd like to ask you one more question.
Yep. Let's do it.
If you could meet your 80-year-old self, what do you think he'd say to you?
Interesting. So I have this theory that those little voices that you hear, especially when you're like little, you're like, oh, I heard this one thing, or a little hunch told me, and somehow I just knew. I have this theory that there's all of these different realities going at the same time because we're multidimensional beings. I had a conversation with this lady the other day. She was like, I don't believe in this multidimensional talk. I was like, really? You ever had a dream before? It's like, you think that's in this dimension where you just magically dream about ancient Greek roaming time out of nowhere? Or you just ever had your intuition? It's like, I wonder whatever happened to Frank and he just magically messages you on Facebook after 20 years. So, in the way I think of multidimensionality, there's already an 80-year-old version of me. And every time I get this download or this little whisper in my ear, that future version of me is leading me closer to that timeline there. I feel like every time I have answered that has led me to this point, has been an older iteration of myself guiding me the entire time. So I will say, lower your head, focus on gratitude, and stay in tune and in line with that inner voice that will never lead you wrong. It might seem wrong in the minute, but it doesn't operate off our timeline. that it transcends time and space. So it may lead you around something you weren't supposed to be in the beginning. I mean, and to begin with. So I would say my 80-year-old self has been guiding me this entire time, and which is why we're on this call talking about all of the timelines that I've been through.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to know more about you or learn from you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to my website, GarrainJones.com, and you can go to my Instagram at Garrain.Jones. I have an awesome retreat coming up June 6th through the 8th here in Austin, Texas. It's called Artist Power Awakened. It's everyone is an artist, even if you just do PowerPoints, because you literally got to create the PowerPoint. Anything that you create makes you an artist. The artist is the little kid in full power. That's artist power. So it's all about the art of confidence and self-expression and embodying your actual truth and expressing from that place. So that will be the 6th through the 8th, and monthly I do an event here in Austin where we do like a little mini version of that. It's called Voices of Expression. And so you can find me there, and I'm just going to always be about the little kid inside of you and making sure that they have a space where they can learn how to actually be happy and not just live a life where you're just existing and not just living. I want you to like live a full life without regrets.
That's amazing. You said there's a movie coming out?
There's a Netflix special. I can't talk about it, but there's
Okay.
a Netflix special that has to do with the top 25 coaches, personal development coaches in the country, and I just happen to be one of them. So
Do you know when that's going to be released?
not at the moment. They had some reshooting and things like that, so the dates got changed.
We'll keep that on our radar. Garrain Jones, thank you so much. This was really enlightening. I think our audience got a lot out of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well, brother.
All right. Take care.
All right, peace.